Hey guys, so welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Oluwatoyin. So in this video, I'm going to be analyzing a call center data using SQL. So in my previous video, I analyzed those same data using Microsoft Excel and Power BI. And this is the Power BI version that you are seeing here. This is the Power BI version. So I analyzed this same call data set in Power BI and in Microsoft Excel. And in today's video, I'm going to be analyzing that same data using SQL, which is SQL. Now, I have this is the dashboard for the Power BI, and I have it in like a light theme design and a dark theme design, depending on your choice. You can always tweak your design. So we are going to be analyzing this using SQL. So let's go to our um SQL Server. So I'm currently using Microsoft SQL Server software. You might be using Workbench or any other SQL Server. So this is a Microsoft SQL Server. Now I have my data sets. You can see that I have my database. So I have my database, and the data set that we're going to be working on is the call center data. This is the database, and if I expand this, I'm going to see the table, and this is the table, and this is my data. And to show this data, what I did was to just right click on this my table, then select top 1000. So I'm able to see the top 1000 data in my table. Now, in case you're having issue uploading your data, let me know if you want me to make a video on how to upload your data into my SQL, Microsoft SQL Server, and I will do that. So let's get right into it. I'm going to have to delete this so that we can start afresh. Now, to get started, we are going to be using what we call comments for description. So comment are simply majorly used for description. They are parts of your code that the server will not read. So the server will always keep them and not process them. So you can use them for description. You can use them to tell us what you're trying to do with your query or your code. Now, so let's get started. So I'm going to be using comment for my description, and this is how to um write your comment. The asterisk did not particularly have count. You can use one, you can use two, you can use 10. It all depends on you. So our first analysis would be to get the total calls. So I'm going to be using this as a description. I'm using the comment as a description to explain that what I'm trying to do in this query that I'm about to write is to get the total calls. So we have our total calls. So let's go back to the Power BI. You can see in the Power BI, our first card visual was the total call. So, and that's what we are trying to do. So we are supposed to get this same number. So let's go back to our SQL Server. So to get our total calls, we are going to start to write our query. Select is a command. Then I'm going to call on the count. Count is like a function. Then I'm going to call now to get our total calls. If you have watched um this analysis that I did in Microsoft Excel or Power BI, you will sort of understand what I'm trying to do here. So to get our total cost, we are going to use something that is unique in our data, the column that is unique, which is our ID. So we are going to be counting all of the IDs. So the count of all of the IDs is going to give us our total cost. So I'm saying select count ID. So what I'm trying to do here is I'm telling my query that I want you to select ID. But when you select it, I want you to count it. What I want you to do is to count it. Now, after counting it, we need to name the result. So to name the result, you use the as function. Then you say you can now give it a name, total calls. Anything programming or query language, you are not allowed to use space, which is why I put total underscore calls, especially when you're naming column or you're naming your any variable, you are not allowed to use space, which is why I used a total underscore. So I'm going to say from. Now we are trying to select our data from our database. So we said select ID, but count it. After you must have counted, I want you to name the result as total calls. Now we want to now try to direct the query from which of the database, because it's possible that we have several databases. So we now say from, and the name of our database. Now you can see that I have other database, but this is the database we are working with. So it is important that we point our query to the database that we are working with. So I'm going to say from call center. You can see it has popped up. Then we need to refer to our table too. So this is just the database. We need to refer to the table, which is dbo.callcenter. So I'm going to say dbo.callcenter. You can see this, and I can put my semicolon. Now, if I execute this, we are done with this first query. If I execute this, it should give me the exact number that we have in our dashboard, and you can see. So this is the total cost. This is we trying to name it. This as is what we have here, and this is the total cost, and this is exactly what we have in our query, which is it in our Power BI dashboard. So let's go back. Let's get right into it. We are done with the first analysis. The next thing we want to do is to get the average satisfactory score. Now, if you remember, this is our table, and we have this satisfactory score. This is our satisfactory score. We are trying to get the satisfactory score, and there are quite a number of columns that are either empty or is zero. We want to make sure that we deal with those rows that are zeros or empty. So let's come back here. Let's give this a description by using our comment. So we call this average satisfactory score. Close the comment. Now we are going to say select. Now, there's quite a number of functions that we are going to use here. First, because the result that we are expecting is going to be in decimal, and we need to take care of that. You know, decimal can have numbers up to from 0 to 9 after the point. So we need to take care of that by rounding it up to whatever figures we want to round it up. In this case, we want to round it up to 2. So we are going to use the round function so that we are able to round up our average. Now, what we are trying to get is the average. So we are going to call the average function. Remember, what we are trying to get is the average, which is what is stated in our description, average satisfactory score. Then after calling the average, we are going to say non-if. So we need to take care of any rows that is none or is zero. So we use the non-if function. Now we need to call our column. What is the name of our column? Which is sat score. Sat underscore score. Then comma is 0. Remember that we have some that are 0. So we need to multiply this by 1.0. This is just to help us to take care of all the automatically convert them from the average calculation. This helps us to eliminate the need for an additional condition. So we use the then close this bracket, then comma 2. Now we are saying that we want to round up the 0 to 2, the numbers of decimals to 2. So we might have about how many decimal, but we want you to round it up to like two decimal points. So which is why we are rounding it up here. Then we need to name this as, so we want to give this average. I'm going to shorten the name, satisfactory core. Then what we need to do now is to call our database, just like we did for the first one, from call center. Then refer to the table dbho.call center. Then one more thing before we go, then we need to write a where statement where sit sat core. So click on the sit sat core is not none. Okay, so we are saying that you need to pull this data. As you're pulling this result, make sure that you pull this result ignoring all the non column that you see there. So you need to ignore all the empty rows that you see there. So none is referred to as empty rows. So we have our query now. So this up help us to round it up to these two decimal points, and we are trying to get the average. And this help us to take care of all the null, and we name it satisfactory score. We call our database and our table, and we make sure that it does not ignore all the non rows. So let's execute this and see what we have. Yes, our average satisfactory score is 5.5. Let's go back to, yes, you can see that we are right on point. We are right on point. So let's go back. Let's go back. So the next thing we want to do is almost the same thing as what we did there. And that one is average call duration. Average call duration. So what we are trying to get, the result we are trying to get with this average call duration is something similar to what we have here. Something similar to what we have here. So because it also comes in decimal, we are going to have to round it up. So I'm going to say select, then call the round function, round average, just almost the same thing because we are trying to get the average call duration. Now average, but because this particular column does not have any empty, which is, let me show you the column. Yes, this column does not have any empty rows or any rows with zero. It's all filled up, no empty rows, no rows with zero. So we might not need to use the non-if. So we just call on the column. What's the name of the column? Call duration. So we just call the name of the column, call duration. Then let's multiply it. We're doing this multiplication because of the decimal. Then comma 2, we're rounding it up to 2. Then we can name it as call duration, call duration, call duration. You don't call it call duration. Then we need to call our database now from call your database, call center, then your table dbho dot call center. Now let's execute this and see what we have. Yes, you can see that we have our call duration in minutes, and it's the exact thing that we have here, 25.02. So that's how to achieve any query that has to do, any result that has to do with decimal points. So the next thing we want to do now is to move on to our chart. Remember that in SQL there's nothing like chart. What you need to do is just to write a query that will give you almost the same results with your chart. So let's give it our description. So the next thing we want to do will be the core trend. Core trend. So for our core trend, we need to do select. Now, if you are doing anything trend analysis, you understand that you need your date and the value, the metrics that you are using. For this, we have our date here, which is our core timestamp. This is our date, so we are able to show the trend per day. So what we want to try to do is to show the trend per day. This data is for 30 days of October 2020. So we need to show the trend of call center per day, how many call center opened in each of these days. And remember, we have our call center, so we want to know for on the 1st of October how many call center opened, for on the 2nd how many call center opened. So that's what we want to do next. So we want to, the first thing we want to say select, then select your date, call timestamp, which is our date, the name of the column for our date, call timestamp. Then we want to count all the call center. So we want to know, we are doing this because we want to know how many call center open for each day. So sorry about that, guys, that's my alarm. So I want to know how many call center open per each day. So I'm calling on the call timestamp, which is my date. Then I'm calling on all the call centers. Then I'm counting them. Then after you must have counted them, we need to give this a name. So we call this call trend. So this is like the trend of call. Then what we need to do, we need to call on our database from call center, call your table. Yeah. So we need to group them. So we are going to group them by call timestamp. So group by call timestamp. So what this will help us to do is that as it's pulling the results, for the call center, it's going to count them and group them by their date. So the numbers of call center that open on the 1st, the numbers of call center that open on the 2nd. So it is group by, we help us to group it by their date. Now we need to call one more function, which is order by. So order by is just to help us arrange it maybe in a descending order or ascending order. So order by, so I will say ascending order. So let's run this and see what we have. So we are order by, I need to put the call center, order by call timestamp, then put the ascending order. So let's execute this and see what we have. Yes, you can see our results. You can see that for on the 1st October 2020, we have 1089 call center open. For on the 2nd, 1084. If you go back to our dashboard, you will still see the same thing. If you are able to see, you can see on the 1st, on the 2nd, you'll be able to see, get the same results. So this is the count of the call centers that open for each of the days in October. So we are done with this part. Let's move on to the next query. The next query is what we want to do with the next query now. Let's give it a description. Is to know call channels. So which of these channels we have about 4 channels now, and we want to know the highest across all call center. So this is our call channels. We have chatbot, web, we have email and call center. So that means a calling too. So we want to know in each of these call center, which one is the highly used by the customers, which one did they use mostly? Is it chatbot, is it web, is it email? So that's the next thing we want to do. So we want to come here and say select. Now we are dealing with 2 columns, channels. So you say select your channels. You can see the name of, let's confirm this channel, yes, and the call center. So we are counting the call center. Select channel, count the call center again here, call center. Then we are going to name this as call channels. Now let's select our database. It's as simple as that. Select our database call center dot dbo dot the call center. Now we need to group by and also order by, just like what we did. So we are going to be grouping it by call channels. So I say group by channels, then order by. So let me order by channels ascending order. So what we are trying to do here is to say, when you select the channels, count the call center, then name it call channels. This is we're trying to point to our database and the table. Then I want you to group it by the call channel. So when you select it, group it by the channels. We have 4 channels. So let me see the number for each of the channels. Then the order by. So let's try to execute this. Now we will need to be able to show our results. So let me scroll down. Now you can see our core channels. So you can see we have 4. So 10,639 people uses most in all the call centers. The highest is the call channel. So people use the call channel mostly, followed by the chatbot, followed by email, followed by the web. So this is the highly used one. If you go back to our Power BI, I'm using this Power BI as reference so that you have an idea. You can see that the highest one is also the same digits, 10,639. Yes, and it's call center. So we have 3 more analysis to go using our SQL. So let's get right into it. Now the next thing is, let's give it the description. This time we want to do state, location. We can call this location. Let's just call this location. So we want to know how many call centers we have in each location, how many call centers we have in each location. And if you go back to our data, we are operating, our data is a US data. So these are states under US. So the business is operating in US, but there are different states in US. So we want to know in each state how many call centers do we have. In each state, how many call centers do we have? As you can see, we want to know how many call centers we have in Florida, Virginia, and all that. So let's go back. So what we need to do now, still almost the same thing with what we have been doing before. We just say select. Now what we are selecting this time is state, comma, then count. We are still counting the call center. Call center is like our fact field. So then name this as location. Location, you can see location by call center. Then point to our table from call center database dot dbo dot our table. So we need to equally group this by state. So we need to group this by state so that we can have the number by each of the state, group by state, then order by state in ascending order, order by state in ascending order. So let's execute this and see what we have. Okay, so I'm going to have to scroll down so that you can see. Yes, you can see now. Alabama, we have 738. Alaska, we have 146 call center. Arizona, we have 737 call center. So this is how each call center were distributed in each of the states. So this is the numbers of call center. You can see California has a lot of call center, 361. If you come back to our map here, you are going to, if you roll over it, you're going to see, yes, So this is how they equally spread across all centers. So we have two more. Let's go back to our. So the next thing we want to do by our dashboard here will be to do the reasons for calling. So what are the reasons that customers are calling? What are the reasons? So let's come back here. Let's do our description. So I'm going to call these reasons for calling. Okay, now if you come to our data here, we have reasons. Now under reasons, we have like three options. We have the payment, we have service outage, we have billing questions. So customers call for either of these reasons. Either they want to complain about or make enquiry about payment, they want to know about the service outage, they want to know about billing questions. So that's the next thing. We want to know which of these is stopping across all call center. Which of these are the customer, the reason why customers are calling across all call center, so that we can know how to tackle them. So let's come here. So I'm going to say reasons for calling. So it's just a select reasons, then comma. So we count our fact data, which is call center. Then we need to name this as reasons for calling. Reasons for calling. You can give it a more descriptive name that you know makes sense to your audience. Then we need to call our database from call center, refer to our table from DBO call center. Now we also need to group by, so that you can group them by each of the reasons. Group by reason, then also order by, so that we have it in orderly. Order by reasons in ascending order. So we execute this. Yes. So let's go down to see. Now you can see our reasons for calling. We have billing question, which is the one that is stopping. So anytime customer call, between 1 to 10 calls, 8 of them is going to be about billing questions. So customers are always calling about billing questions. This has already given us an insight that the business needs to look into their billing question and probably provide a solution. So we have payments. So let's go back to our, you can see that here we equally have the billing question as the topping criteria. So we have the billing question as the topping criteria. You can see billing question with 23,462, which is the same thing that we have here, 23,462. We have the last one. Let's move to the last one now. Sorry, I'm rushing this. You can always go back to watch the video, and please subscribe to my YouTube channel, please, so that I can make more video. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. So let's go to the next one, which is response time. So we want to know when customers are responded to. Response time. So if we go back to our table, we have like a response time, which is 3 below SLA, within SLA, and above SLA. I think SLA in the telecommunication industry simply means service level agreement. So we want to know which of this is stopping. So it's as simple as what we've been doing before. Select what's the name of the column, response time. So select response time, comma, then count our fact column, which is call center. Then name this as response time. Then all we need to do is to say from call our database dot dbo point to our table. Then we need to group by the response time. You can see that we'll be doing almost the same thing, because yes, that's response time, then order by response time in ascending order. So put this and execute this. Okay, so we have an error here. It's saying that response time is not correct. I don't know why, but that should be correct. So let's execute this. Whatever reason why it's pointing soon. So we might need to remove this. Let me execute this. Okay. So you can see, as you can see, we have our response time. Okay, it didn't arrange this accordingly because we did not use the order by. I don't know why we're getting that error, but you can see within SLA is the one that is topping, followed by, and if you check this here, you can see we have the same thing. Within SLA is topping by 20,625. Now here we have 20,625, which is within SLA. So everything that we have on this dashboard is what we have been able to analyze. Everything that we have in this dashboard, we have been able to analyze it. So let's go back. So let's just go back. So we have, if we scroll back to from the beginning where we start, we have our total calls, average satisfactory score, call duration in minutes. This is our call trend. Then we follow by our call channels, followed by location, each location and the numbers of call centers that we have there. We have reasons for calling, billing question is stopping. We have response time within SLA is stopping. And this is the end of this call center analysis. Like I said, you can watch the Microsoft tutorial where we have the same dashboard. You can watch the Power BI where we have the same dashboard. And this is the SQL dashboard. Please, if you have any question, please drop them in the comment section. If you want me to create a video on how to upload your data in the MySQL server, please let me know in the comment section. Don't forget to subscribe, turn on the notification icon, and I'll see you in my next video. Thank you. Bye.